Okay, AJ Mahara here. Borderline entitlement. What is that? It is the projected out original internal split within those who have borderline personality. They feel this full entitlement to maintenance. They're high maintenance emotionally, and you should just be offering anything and everything that they could ever need, even though you can't even know what that is half the time because they don't know either. Entitlement, the amount to which a person, in this case a borderline, feels they just have a right. It has to be fair, it has to be just, it has to be equal. But really, for them, it has to be more. It has to be better. It has to be you giving. They can't even receive it. But boy, they feel entitled to it. Whatever, quote, it, unquote, is. Entitlement, the belief that one is inherently deserving of privileges and special treatment. How does that relate to the borderline and the internal original split in the borderline projected out, acted out? Sometimes acted in, but you're still gonna get it. Let's get into it. Borderline entitlement. That might sound really strange to a lot of people who might listen with BPD. And it might even be like confusing to some who have someone in their life with borderline personality, or who have had, or who are the ex of, or the on again, off again. You're not sure what's happening with a person with borderline personality disorder in your life. And especially if you're new to this, or remember when you're a loved one, and you might know a lot more now, but remember when you didn't know what the heck was going on? Borderline entitlement comes from this original internal split. But borderline entitlement is everything that's going on. It's emotional reasoning, which is an oxymoron. It's emotionally irrational justification, this borderline entitlement, wherein if they feel okay, then you can't be okay. Can't be as good as them. Now they know everything. Now they're going to show you. Now they're going to get you. Now they're all that. So if they feel okay, wow, watch out, because you can't be okay. Because remember, it's all black and white for them. And when they resent that, and you're feeling okay because they're not feeling okay, which these things are not, they think it has all to do with you, why they feel okay because you're so inferior suddenly, or they feel unokay because they feel so inferior suddenly, but this has nothing to do with you. The borderline projected out, cognitively distorted illusion that you think you deserve better treatment because you aren't a borderline. So because they feel inside of self, and often subconsciously, often not aware of this, but they'll act it out, they'll show you in so many different ways. They'll show the people closest to them, and they might generally show others as well, that they believe on the one side of the split, the I'm okay equals I'm terrific, I'm great, I'm all that now, borderline entitlement. And yes, it is a narcissistic overcompensatory presentation. When they get to that place, they think that you think, or others think, that they deserve better treatment because they aren't borderline. The borderline entitlement is often like on the one side of the split, it's the poor me. I can't help it. I didn't mean to do this or that. If only you didn't do this or that, or say this or that, you made me do it. I don't know. You can't hold me responsible. Help. I don't know. Because, I hurt I'm borderline. I don't, you can't expect me to just to do whatever, fill in the blank. That's the one side of actually feeling like they're entitled to more validation, more support, more understanding, more everything, more giving, more. Because they're in this, poor me. And the other side of this split of borderline entitlement, it's overcompensatory often, but they get in these spaces, well, I'm all that now, so like, what's your problem? I don't need you, etc. And these are not things, they can say some of these things, but often they're going to act them out. They're going to show you in many different ways. So as their mood states change, so too does their feeling of entitlement, feeling entitled to be understood, have their poor to even worse behavior excused. Excuse them for expecting the special attention that they're projecting out that you seem to feel you deserve, when in fact it's coming from them. And excuse them while they need more understanding, more validation, because they're in so much pain. Now, I'm not saying they're not in so much pain, but the feeling entitled to more from whomever they're close to, and in general, like, for example, if they're in a line waiting for something and they might be stressed and they might get triggered, then they feel like entitled, so they don't even realize this consciously often, to go to the head of the line because they can't stand waiting in the line. Or borderlines get entitled from a poor me place. They expect preferential treatment without any consistent regard for, if any awareness at all, as to how you feel or what you need, or all that they're not giving or seeing or understanding about you, because there's that borderline, and I'm not saying they're not exactly narcissists, right? It's that borderline, what about me? Excuse me, you said what? But yeah, okay, but what about me? Lack of personal responsibility, lack of known self. They shirk personal responsibility, and yes, it's coming from a place of defensive, maladaptive coping defense mechanisms that aren't even related to what you did or didn't do, said or didn't say. They're internal, and they're from the adverse childhood experience and or perception in childhood on the part of people with BPD. And yes, this is egocentrism. Why? It's narcissistic, in other words. Egocentric. Why? Because it's that young, childlike presentation again of like, what about me, what about me, what about me? It's that insatiable aspect of what is very painful for people with BPD. The insatiable place inside where the brokenness truly is, but where they need to learn to take responsibility for healing that. So people, borderlines, even when more aware at times, continue to have, at other times, they continue to have young, childlike, unreasonable expectations of others. We see this in online, and I'm sure you could see it in your life with somebody with BPD. It's that online global building narrative of people with BPD. They just have these unreasonable, rather emotionally immature expectations of everybody else. They're not looking at themselves. They're not seeing self and other when they're in this borderline entitled place of their unrealistic expectations, unreasonable expectations. They just expect to be given this preferential, this entitled special treatment. Borderlines insist you meet their expectations or else. That can be said or unsaid. That can be acted out or that can be acted in. You need to meet their expectations or else you're not being fair. Nothing's fair. Borderlines believe they have a uniquely painful experience that is everybody else's fault but their own. So they're entitled to whatever with these unrealistic expectations and the unstable relational patterns, because you couldn't possibly know how much pain they're in. It's like an entitlement of pain. They're in so much pain you can't imagine. And to a degree that could be true, but still, it's a rather childlike way of, again, showing in behavior, words, actions, tantrums, this entitlement for you to fix something for them. They feel entitled to it, but you can't fix it for them even if you try really hard. So they take everything personally, right? It has nothing to do with them. Like things maybe that I'm saying in this audio video. Somebody online with BPD is going to take it personally. It's not meant personally to direct it to anyone, but they take things so personally, especially with those closest to them. And this overcompensating defense against abandonment annihilation fears is an ongoing, what about me cry of need. Borderline entitlement houses primitive narcissistic defenses, while they take and take and take, and then take some more. They can't at all figure out why you just don't understand, why you just don't get it. You might have just been fabulous for like an hour or half a day or a week. But then the second something that triggers them, or their mood fluctuates, or they feel like you've done something, or, they're triggered. They get emotionally dysregulated, but with this sense of overprotective, narcissistic defense of entitlement. They can't even receive what you're giving half the time. It becomes conflict and drama. Borderline entitlement is projected out onto you as if you are acting or thinking, expecting what they are and do. So what they're doing, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're overwhelmed by, what they're triggered back to, they think you're making it happen. They think it's your fault. And that in their entitlement, they project all of that out onto you. They feel like you've hurt them. You probably didn't do anything. This happens within them often. And then they feel entitled to show you how you have wronged them and how unfair it was, whatever it was, if in fact anything even occurred outside of themselves. Borderline entitlement is an emotional canceling out of your existence, let alone your emotions, your needs, your wants. Borderline entitlement is an emotional canceling out of your existence. That's how egocentric this defense and this internal original split in the borderline really is. When they are triggered or in conflict, drama, chaos modes, there is little, if any, room in their emotional dysregulation or childlike, unrealistic, entitled, give me, help me attitude, poor me, for anyone else or anything else. Borderline entitlement is the borderline's externalization, as I said, of poor me onto you, and it results in phrases or behavior that indicates, I can't help it. On the part of the borderline. I can't help it. Stop invalidating me. It's your fault. It's not fair. You're hurting me. What's the matter with you? Why can't you just fill in the blank? Why don't you just fill in the blank? Why did you say fill in the blank? What did you mean when you did fill in the blank? Which is all like usually projective. You made me do it. Well, I didn't mean to. If they hear you, I didn't mean to. You made me do it. And then they can flip to this other side of the split. But I'm better than you, like I know more than you do. Like, are you kidding me? So one is the poor me, and I'm going to get into what that is in a second. And the other is that haughty sort of like, now I'm going to get you because I'm all back into this sort of egocentric, narcissistic defense of it's all you and therefore now you're going to pay for it. And you should care more because I'm a borderline. And a whole lot of other accusations and things could be hurled at you from that perspective. It's an I'll show you attitude, this borderline entitlement when they flip to the other side of the split, which is they go from the I'm all bad to the I'm terrific as an overcompensatory defense. Time to pay for treating the borderline badly as they twist their poor treatment of you around as if you were treating them poorly. Borderline entitlement is questioning everything about you that is the borderline's projected out grandiosity, the devalue and the push. You're no good. I don't need you. I don't trust you. You don't love me. You are cheating on me. I know it. You're just a liar. You're you. Or conversely, the other side of the split, the internal split inside of the borderline personality disordered individual with this entitlement, is a collapse to needy helplessness that demands your attention. Help me. It invites you into endless, circular, one-way conversations, repetitious and so pointless they solve nothing. Or, with an acting in borderline, you might just get silence. Borderline entitlement is emotional reasoning run amok, and they don't get that. And emotional reasoning has no logic. So if it starts to give you a headache, that's why you can't follow it. That's why you don't know what's going on. You're like, what's happening here? And it can make you really hurt, and it can make you really angry, to say the least. Borderline entitlement to so many with borderline personality is very unfamiliar territory. They're not aware of it. Territory they're not so aware of, and they take zero responsibility for it and project it all out onto you. Borderline entitlement can worsen as one gets midway through therapy, actually, as well, when many can fall into thinking they're way better than they are, perhaps weaponizing their increasing intellectual understanding of some insight and growth, or doing that without having any therapy or insight or growth, just weaponizing something from their intellectual strength that, again, makes no logical sense and isn't age appropriate and emotionally is very inconsistent and wobbly, but they can weaponize their intellect against you. Even some in therapy with insight and growth, without a conscious awareness emotionally of the journey still ahead, that is to say, they get a little full of themselves because they're really doing well. And this is a sense of entitlement because they are changing, but maybe they don't realize that there's still a significant amount of change and way to go forward. And that there's a lot that remains for them still to learn more about. More emotional intelligence, to be able to move out of the entitlement, the projected out entitlement of this internal split. The original internal split that is always projected out in borderline splitting. The entitlement of so many with borderline personality is exploitative, manipulative, and self-serving in a self-aggrandizing way, which, yes, that can be over-compensatory, trying to make up for feeling less than. It holds to the borderline narrative of the inherent intellectual emotional split still needing to be healed within. Intellectualism often strong, living in their heads, but emotionally still young children flailing, and there is a vulnerability there. But they can fire this at you in a heartbeat when they're trying to convince themselves and trying to make themselves feel okay, because when they don't feel okay, they think you did it to them. Whatever that you did is or didn't do. It's always got to be you, not them, when something feels off or unfair or unjust to them. In a narrative that continues to see borderlines cry foul in more clever, over-compensatory ways in which they say and or present two diametrically opposed defenses at once. One, from the unstable internal emotional landscape of the internal split. It's the pull in the push-pull. I'm fragile, sensitive, code for you better walk on eggshells. It's about me. I can't help it. Just accept me, validate me, hear me. And it's not just asked for, it's rather demanded and expected, or nothing's fair, nothing's reasonable, nothing's okay. Manipulating, suggesting that if you don't meet the requirements for the pull, the pull in, like help me, I'm sensitive, I'm fragile, validate me, why don't you just help me? Manipulating, suggesting, they'll manipulate with that, suggesting they may self-harm, or maybe they don't want to go on. And the other side of this internal split is from a narcissistic defense, overtly aggressively or even covertly passive-aggressively asserted through incongruent words, actions, and or behavior, or all three, designed to put you on the defensive. This is the push, the devaluation, the ultimate projection of the entitlement of the borderline. I don't have a problem. My problem is you. You just don't get it. You don't love me. You treat me like crap. You did this, you did that, you did the other thing, you didn't say this, you didn't do that. What's the matter with you? And why should I believe you? You don't care about me. I can't trust you. Who do you think you are? And this is manipulating. I will abandon you before you abandon me. The I don't need you, out of sight, out of mind mentality coming in forth through this borderline overcompensatory entitlement in the push split of the value. And they could be getting into the posture and or the readiness to abandon you, devalue, they're devaluing, discard, abandon you before you can abandon them, and a high possibility of ghosting. And it all comes from the internal original split inside people with borderline personality and how that's projected out in the push-pull so much more, but also in the splitting that they project out onto you, and their changeability, and their incongruence, and their lack of identity, and their lack of self-awareness of how they're affecting others, if they have any awareness of that at all. There's the intellectual understanding sometimes when they're sort of midway through therapy, that there can be an understanding intellectually, perhaps at times, and from a distance about relating to others and learning some DBT skills and really starting to grow. But they haven't matched that yet with enough emotional maturation and emotional intelligence to still not bounce back and forth between those two splits. The I'm okay, you're not okay, you're okay, I'm not okay, how dare you. And this is all wrapped within borderline entitlement. Just as a closing example, how entitled do borderlines actually feel when they get you in those circular conversations in which they have a strong need and therefore they don't see you at all? It's a very egocentric, very entitled borderline behavior. When you're in those circular conversations, they might wake you up to have one of these 3.5, 4-hour conversations, and they don't seem to realize what's happening for you at all. Borderline entitlement, and then how they project that out onto others and think that others think they're so much better, so entitled, should get preferential treatment, when that's usually not how others are feeling at all. I mean, narcissists tend to do that, but most people don't do that. But a lot of people with BPD will still have that as their cognitively distorted perception or their triggered, emotionally dysregulated, irrational feelings from the past projected out onto you in the here and now. Borderline entitlement has the inherent internal split inside. The poor me, the help me, the lost, dissociated from inner child. And on the flip side, the haughty, more defended narcissistic presentation of I'm all good now, you're all bad, I got this covered, what's the matter with you? You did this, you did that, you did the other thing. And either way, they get you coming and they get you going. Borderline entitlement. A lot more to say about it. Hope that was helpful. Take care.